can remove another person, and the robot can work practically all day long.
I mean,
with no unions, with nobody.
All of this relies on distributed data.
And in the last 20 years, there was this mass difference between the US and Europe. And most of it is about digital services or, technology in general. So we missed that wave. Now there are a lot of initiatives all around Italy, but all around Europe, I would say, that are, really looking at bringing back some of the technology stack, if not all of it. I hope that Europe, being less on the corporate side or political side anyway, but more driven by ethical and human ideas. I think that for AI, Europe could be a utopian place to be. I'm not so sure for the US.
Baseline.
The baseline is designed to create an emotional response.
I've seen things you won't believe.
More human than human. Make you question everything.
And I wrote a report around, distributed storage. My team wrote it actually, but I was leading the project, and these guys at Cubbit, had a chance to read the report, and they saw me on LinkedIn. I live 100 kilometers from Bologna, and they asked me to join them for lunch. Why not? I mean. So I came here, we start talking, we spend a lot of time together. I was thrilled by the fact that there was a startup, a technology startup, especially a storage startup in Bologna, which usually you find most of the time in the US, specifically in the Silicon Valley. So most of the storage companies are there. So we spent a lot of time together, and we exchanged ideas on how I see things, how they see things, etc., etc. We find a lot of alignment in the end, and a couple of days later, they offered me a job, and they said, "Why not? I mean, let's try." I had experiences with startups in the past, and still in object storage. I mean, I'm kind of a fan of object storage. Started, many years ago, and I said, it could be a good chance to do something instead of, commenting on something. I was thrilled by the fact that there was a startup, a technology startup, especially a storage startup in Bologna, which usually you find most of the time in the US, specifically in the Silicon Valley. So most of the storage companies are there. So we spent a lot of time together, and we exchanged ideas on how I see things, how they see things, etc., etc. We find a lot of alignment in the end, and a couple of days later, they offered me a job, and they said, "Why not? I mean, let's try." I had experiences with startups in the past, and still in object storage. I mean, I'm kind of a fan of object storage. Started, many years ago, and I said, it could be a good chance to do something instead of commenting on something. We started working together. So in the company had a great evolution in the last couple of days. So we moved from being a service provider on to being what we call a cloud enabler. Okay, and the main difference is that we provided a control plane, the back end of our solution, as a SaaS service, but the customer provides all the hardware, all the infrastructure. This means we remove all the complexity, and but you keep control over your data, because everything is stored in your premises, or in your data centers, or anyway in sites for which you have control. And it's really interesting, because this changed the way the company proposed itself to the customer. So we moved from terabytes for each single deals, and now most of the deals are around the petabytes, multi-petabytes. And also the kind of customers, of course, for small enterprises, we move to larger and larger enterprises, or larger organizations anyway, public administration and so on.
So you have a amazing deep history in storage, specifically enterprise storage, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working in storage since probably the beginning of my career, and that was in the early 90s. So yes, I mean, I spent a lot of time with a lot of CTOs in startups, so doing the real innovation. I traveled a lot between Italy and Europe in general, and the Silicon Valley. So I had a chance to, to learn, and most of my, I mean, I was lucky because I was in the right place at the right time, and to learn, and then to communicate to the people. So that's I think the best way to see things. And at the same time, because of my previous experiences, so I, at the very beginning of my career, I was a developer, but was not my my job, and I started doing system administration. I got a certification for Solaris. The Sun operating system at that time was the 90s still, so Solaris was and Sun Microsystem was the go-to system for the beginning of the web era, the .com era. And so I had a lot of experiences with enterprises, the way they think, and and also the channel, because I was running the system integrator. So I had multiple experiences that contributed to helping me understand what's in the mind of people on the other side of the table when we discuss something. And so you understand better why people make some choices, then you can you can justify some of them, or maybe you can tell when they are totally wrong, just because you saw it so many other times and can compare it.
So just being in Bologna, the academic depth here, and the student, that thirst for knowledge is really apparent. It's on the street, in the restaurants, it's everywhere. I'm fascinated to understand that Europe's oldest university is in Bologna. So we're not dealing with a recent phase of academic thing. This, academia and knowledge goes all the way back to some of the Nobel winners like Marconi. There's a deep, rich academic drive in the Bologna area, which is fascinating really, because it's such a beautiful, natural place. So Alessandro and Stefano, who founded Cubbit, were at the Bologna University. They were within that sphere of academia.
Yes.
And now they're building Cubbit, they've got you. But, as we sit here, 93% of, businesses in Europe are using US cloud providers.
I know that.
So if, we're sitting in a town with one of the richest and oldest academic histories, we've got an amazing technology startup with serious depth of experience. We've got Lamborghinis, Ducatis, everything that come from this area. One of the biggest defense companies in the world, Leonardo. Why? What do you want people to understand about Cubbit that maybe 93% of European businesses don't get right now?
So I think that you know, all Europe, you know, lost a chance to be relevant in the digital world. I mean, and not just Italy, not just Bologna, because at the end of the 90s, both American and the European economies were pretty much the same in terms of size. And in the last 20 years, there was this massive difference between the US and Europe. And most of it is about digital services or, you know, technology in general. So we missed that wave. And, you know, if you look at the single companies or you look at the single individuals, we have a lot of people with a lot of, you know, knowledge, and they work on very innovative solutions from everywhere. So you mentioned the automotive, and we are leaders in terms of, you know, innovation. You look at Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Ducatis, but there are several others. I mean, Dallara, that makes the frame for Formula 2 and Formula 3. They are built, you know, in a small town close to this area, and many others. So that's and that's just a segment of the market. Okay, so the university helps a lot, and now I think with this this is going to change, because we really gave up on everything when it's sovereignty, you know, technology, etc. Now there are a lot of initiatives all around Italy, but all around Europe, I would say, that are, you know, really looking at bringing back some of the technology stack, if not all of it.
Well, we're seeing two emerging, i.e., they're really accelerating technologies at the moment, which is the rise of generative AI. And again, we're seeing North America and indeed, you know, Shanghai, China, driving forward with OpenAI's ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've got Microsoft, Google, Amazon sitting in that space, but I would say, you know, ChatGPT is the predominant technology. I think it gets 500 million users a day. You know, we're talking about technologies that nobody's seen the level of usage before.
Yeah.
And then we've got DeepSeek in China and various other Chinese initiatives. How can Europe, based on the lessons that you and I have seen over the last 20 years, how can Europe ensure in 20 years, 93% of Europeans are not using North American or Chinese AI products and are using some sort of sovereign European AI product? How can we make sure that happens? Indeed, do we have to? Is it too late? But it feels like,
well, it's never too late.
It feels like there's a moment, there's an opportunity right now.
Yeah. So first of all, it's never too late. So the idea that, you know, if somebody else started earlier, so they will have a, you know, a huge success. But, you know, not always the pioneers are the winners, but, you know, most of the time are some followers that are improving on the product and do it better, instead of, you know, working only on the innovative part. So the success is not just, you know, being the first. Actually, most of the time you are too early. Mm. And now you're right. I mean, so OpenAI is really strong, but as well as, you know, now Meta and XAI from. The problem is, so to do that, I mean, they first of all they are breaking a lot of rules. Is it okay for you that, you know, look at the Ghibli style picture that everybody is, you know, asking ChatGPT? Okay, so it's a breach of intellectual property. They're working to say no, it's not, but, you know, it is. So you trained your stuff on you know, on the movies of this guy, and the same goes for, you know, everything else. So our posts on Facebook, I don't have Facebook fortunately, but our posts on Facebook are used for training, as well as, you know, Twitter or X posts. So they are using your material, your, you know, creations anyway to do it. Is it legal? Have you ever give them the the confirmation from to some form to something to say, okay, you can do it. No, actually no. And on the other hand, yes, ChatGPT is great. It's probably, they still have a lead, but DeepSeek demonstrated that, with some innovation, with some clever way to do things, you can spend 1/10, 1/20th of the money that they are spending and get very good results. So, I mean, where are we? So China is all about open sourcing everything. Are they doing it for political reasons, or are they doing it for, trying to steer, some of the interest and, make the technology more open? Or I don't know what's behind it, but they are very strong with open source, and we can take advantage of it. Also in Europe, we are starting to see more companies doing stuff around. Mistral is one, and they are smaller, of course, but there are plenty of investment from the European Commission, for example. And here in Bologna, the supercomputer Leonardo, which is one of the biggest of the world at the moment, and many startups are using it for free. There is a program from the University of Bologna to give startups for R&D free resources of a massive supercomputer that is also that will be expanded this year again, and they can take advantage of it for free. But not just the supercomputing power. They can, they can have engineers helping them optimize the code. They can have consultants to help them positioning the product, etc., etc. This comes, I mean, I talk it free. It's paid with our taxes, but the interesting part is that if you're set up in Europe, you can have access to these programs, and so that you can make something not just run by pure money or ability of some of these larger corporations now, but you can do it for the benefit of all. You maybe you remember that OpenAI was a foundation, well, it still is a foundation, it's trying to change in a money-driven company.
This challenge of the AI companies, and the second thing I was going to talk about was quantum, but we'll come to quantum because I think we're going to see a quantum review this afternoon. At CNEC. Is there a danger that the way that AI companies are allegedly ingesting copyright data into these large language models, are they setting a new precedent for data? Because you and I would know, with GDPR and other, medical records, data privacy, for a long time, certainly in the architecture of enterprise storage systems, backup systems, archive systems, regulatory compliance, which I remember GDPR, it wasn't just financial. CEOs would go to jail. People would actually have criminal proceedings brought against them if they weren't handling the consent and compliant management of regulated data, right? But if the AI companies are quote unquote moving fast and breaking things, do they need to be retrospectively, legally, made to be accountable for what they've done? Or are they setting a new precedent that means businesses will just start using data kind of without a respect to the regulatory framework?
It's very, it's a very complex discussion, and
maybe
I'm not the right person to do it, but think about, Meta that used that library of stolen books.
Yes.
The news was out a few weeks ago, and, they did it, and it was approved by the management anyway, and they said, okay, we do it, and then we will discuss later. I mean, this is a huge problem. I mean, so
it's a huge problem.
That's okay. And anyway, now everybody can write a novel like Dostoevsky because they got all the just to mention one. But anyway, so I can copy the style of everybody, and write something, and even the same authors that they can stop writing the original ideas and came up with a few bullet points and get an AI writing for them. So all the humanity will stop innovating them because there is a copy of a copy. Because I don't think that AI today can innovate. AI is good at copying stuff that is already done, and maybe can improve some stuff further. I mean, they can accelerate in the research processes or any other process. But is that the spark of our intelligence gone? That what makes the difference? And the problem is just that. I mean, so if everything I do, all of my work is available to an AI, is it good or bad? We are not, I mean, ready for this answer. If it's good for the for the humanity, it's okay. But again, OpenAI is not the foundation. They are not building the supreme AI to help solving for free the problems of humanity. They are building an AI that they are selling, and at a steep price, if you want, the best of their models, and they are making money through Microsoft, through others. So it's not for the benefit of the humanity. I could give up on intellectual property or maybe everything if I'm sure that the work done, the research is ethical and is done to solve some of humanity's problems. But it's not the case. Meta didn't steal all the books for to help educating poor childs in some third world country. No, they did it to make more money, and that's it.
The OpenAI mantra, I believe, is through ChatGPT, is to optimize human productivity. So they are trying to bring all that information to the individual. That's their perspective would be, well, okay, we appreciate these concerns, and there are legal and moral and ethical questions and all sorts of challenges, but they are looking to optimize individual productivity by empowering people with products like ChatGPT. And I think it's, everywhere I go, everybody's using it.
I'm using it every day, but that's not a problem.
No. So I guess my point is that how do you manage that friction between something that is genuinely so useful and easy and quick, seemingly, versus something that's has moral questions about how it derived itself? Because if this was a truly open initiative, it would feel better. But as it's a money-making business, that seems to be where the challenge comes in. Which actually, the initial perception of OpenAI was to be open. I mean, do you think Europe needs an open AI, a sovereign AI built out of Europe that's somehow tied to the values of the geography?
Yes, but again, it will never be as good as OpenAI, because if you train our AI on on a limited training set, because you can't access private data, you can access medical record, you can access many other information that are for privacy laws and GDPR and everything, they are protected. So it won't be the same. What I'm thinking is I'm not against OpenAI, but I'm against the fact that okay, we increase the productivity. What can you do with more productivity? Because you can do the same job in less hours, having more free time, which is usually what happens in Europe, to be honest. Okay, and or you can do more work in the same time, and so that you can fire some people. Look at the announcement I was reading this morning is that Microsoft is planning to eliminate
Microsoft are going huge on staff
Yeah.
removal.
Exactly.
And there was another one. Is it Shopify have announced this morning? I think 43% of staff being removed. I mean, these are huge.
Huge. And what are we going to do?
I mean, I was quite shocked. I mean, on the way here, Enrico, I looked at those two and I thought it's almost surreal how quickly it's happening. Do you know?
Oh, yes, because you have these middle level jobs that they are in the end they are not really doing something that the AI can't do. And now with the agents and stuff, it's it's even easier. So you can replace them with an AI. It's less expensive. It works 24 hours a day. I mean, why not? So what these guys are going to do? That's a problem. I mean, I'm okay working three days per week, even 2 days per week, if you pay me the same amount of money I was getting before. Of course, now I have free time. I have time to spend the money I earn. I time to to spend with the family, and maybe these 2-3 days I'm still working are better because I'm more relaxed. I can do stuff in a different way. I am not stressed, etc., etc. So if this is what is going to happen, then AI is great. But if I'm going to lose my job and my kids won't have an opportunity because maybe they won't be coders, fortunately, my one of them is really fond of computer science in general, so maybe he will have a job. But there are many other jobs that will disappear. And just automated, and and robots are coming, and the robots are becoming more and more intelligent now. So what does it mean? Maybe you will pay 30 or 60K a robot that can do basic stuff. You can remove another person and the robot can work practically all day long.
I mean,
with no unions, with nobody.
All of this relies on distributed data. And when I look at over the last 5 years, the decentralization of consumption and generation of data. So the idea that no longer do you have a centralized factory with robots who are using information and producing information, we're rapidly moving to a highly decentralized, inbuilt world where data is being accessed geographically, dispersed. The world that we entered storage in, which was around, proprietary monolithic architectures for consolidation, cost effectiveness. We've gone into the cloud era, which is essentially somebody else's monolith, if you like, but you're renting it and they put multiple people on it to create cost effectiveness. The idea that we're now moving to much more data-driven, decentralized workloads, makes me think, the architectures that you and I have been discussing. When I was involved in the acquisition of CleverSafe by IBM 10 years ago now, object storage obviously came out of a lot of the early work Facebook did when they were evolving technologies like Apache Hadoop and Apache Cassandra to service global workloads. We're now here in Bologna, the heart of academia of Europe, talking about a data platform that feels like it was built for the AI age, which is why I'm personally so excited about this business.
So that's one of the reasons why I joined the company. I mean, so that's really something different. The decentralized storage, or in general, distributed storage, gives you a different perspective because everything is created at the edge in the end. So if you think about, our phones taking a picture, or, sensors in a smart city, or anything else, even in a manufacturing plant. So you are collecting huge amounts of data, and some of it has to be, used immediately. Some of it has to be moved in the core data center, in the cloud for, analytics, or even long-term retention because compliance, etc., etc. So you have this data moving. So you have the concept of data mobility, you have the concept of a real-time computing at the edge, or in the cloud. So everything is much more fluid than the past. So with all this technology that is spread out, again, from phones to sensor in a plane or whatever. So you need to collect these massive amounts of data, and actually you don't know, and that's important, what you are going to do with this data in 10 years from now, for example. So most of the time we think about data as something that you need to run now, and then after the job is completed, maybe you save it for some reasons, but how many other times are you going to access it? And it becomes cold. But if you think also about oil and gas companies, they are retrieving backups from the 70s and the 80s, and so they use sonars to practically map all the sea. And at that time, they didn't have the software to run the right analytics on top of it. So they did what they could at that time, but then it was useless to go further because they didn't have the compute power, they didn't have AI, they didn't have other stuff. Now they are retrieving this long-term archives, and they are finding new judgments or new sources of money somehow, and they're doing it now. So think about it. I mean, so they use a boat in the middle of the sea. They run their some of the computational stuff there. Then they run something in the small data center compared to today that they had at that time, and then they store it forever in somewhere where it was cheap, maybe on tapes. Nobody's carrying it. And then an engineer one day, researchers found a way to reuse the data, and they had to find the data, use the latest HPC technology. They ran jobs again, and they found, what they didn't in.
So business innovation, solutions to health issues could exist within the tape libraries, the archives, the data stores
everywhere
today.
I mean, and the idea is that you need this idea of distributed storage also, because you can't put everything, all your eggs in one basket, right? So what happens? You use tapes, and you say, okay, we will never, use this again because we have to keep them for a historical reason, maybe, or whatever. But actually, it's not true. It's less and less true, because again, you want to train AI on historical data. Where do you get this data? Somewhere, okay? And so having these kind of platforms that are fluid and are somehow disaggregated. So you have storage, you have metadata, you have access points, you have all of this, and you can change the architecture over time because things change. Okay, you don't need edge computing today. Okay, you need it tomorrow. You just deploy the necessary components and you access the same infrastructure. So the infrastructure evolves over time and follows your business.
Do you know the interesting thing that's come to my mind? Our perception of time is fundamentally warping. The idea that a business exists today and there's backups and then there's future capacity, it's totally warping, it's totally changing, because the reality is business exists today could be, if it could recall its historical data set and make it available to contemporary generative AI or machine learning, it could be enhancing its business capability, the efficiency of its products today, but also the idea that data that's being created today is secure and private is wrong. Things like quantum safe encryption, future risks that even if somebody can get your data today that's encrypted, that they can't crack it. The fact that this technology is moving so quickly, next week, next month, quantum encryption or quantum computing or could break that and get access to that information. So I feel like I'm struggling to articulate it, but the idea that somehow CTOs, CIOs need to optimize for today in terms of what's secure today and what data do we need to access today feels completely wrong. What actually the time is warped into today, we need to consider future-proofing our information, but also deriving our business identity and differentiator, not just from asking for customer feedback today, but for looking back into our very history, finding insights from our 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and
so how
there
does,
is more
how
to
does
that.
Cubbit play? I mean, is the idea that we just get everything and we put it on a distributed cloud object store and start processing it with AI to find these insights? What's
So I think that I mean the future is really interesting also for us. We have a roadmap where we are going to make our storage platform much more intelligent than today. Okay, and because again, yes, you're right. I mean, so you have all this data. You don't really know today what you are going to do with it tomorrow. Okay, but it has to be cheap because, of course, you know you can't store data, all your data, in a very expensive storage system. It's unsustainable over time, and it can be also, you know, sustainable from the point of view of you know, CO2 emissions or you know, power in general. Okay, so and you have to find this. So you need something that is sustainable, that is safe, but also you need something that it becomes more intelligent. For example, yes, we always talk about training AI with some data, but data by itself is nothing if it's not really prepared to be a training set. No, so you need to tag the data, you need to augment the metadata somehow. So
tuning, embeddings, you know, all of the addition. I mean, AI storage workloads could be 10, 100x of traditional applications because of the additional vector databases, context layers that's required to do that. So, you know, we have to move to something that's much more cost effective and energy efficient. There are people who are so worried about the increase in power required to power this AI machine era.
Yeah.
And they're totally right. So the idea that distributed object storage is 70% less power hungry than something that's on all, you know, it feels like
yeah, so we are already at a point where, you know, our solution is, you know, so much more efficient than most of the competitors because the way we do things. Okay, so by using erasure coding at a geographic level, multiple layers of erasure coding at geographic level, we can have like less than half, sometimes 1/3 of the total amount of energy needed to run a competitive system. Other system.
Equivalent system.
The idea is also that that's one part of the job. The problem with object stores usually is that, you know, they are not fast enough, and most of the training jobs in AI are done with very fast, very expensive, no frills kind of storage. What we are working on at the moment is why not change a little bit the paradigm, because you have this distributed storage in a perimeter that you control. So maybe it's in Italy, maybe it's Europe, wherever, and multiple data centers. But potentially, so when you start doing AI training, for example, you need GPUs. How many GPUs can you afford? Because you are not, to be honest, you are not Meta, you are not Google, you are not Microsoft, you are not OpenAI. You can't have all the GPUs that you want. Maybe you don't need all of them. But at the same time, the problem is, where are you going to buy? Because you are not buying the GPUs. Because are you running, you know, GPU workloads all the time? Probably not. You need the training for some time, you need some tuning, you need a few other things, but you don't need the best-in-class GPUs. Or in other cases, you need some GPUs for inferencing, some GPUs for training, etc., etc. So what can you do? So with we are implementing an architecture for which you can move our gateways close to the GPUs.
Mm.
And you can do all the prefetching of the training data set so that you have our gateway deployed where you are buying the GPUs or renting the GPUs. Okay, so you can have 10 GPUs from a service provider, 10 from another service provider, and maybe 10 eggs in your premises. I don't know. So, and you deploy the gateway, which is a very simple activity. And you do, when you start the training, you select with a federated learning mechanism. You select the parts of the training set that needs to be in each one of these gateways, so that the gateways has access to all the data. So maybe if needed, you can access at multi-millisecond latency the data remotely, but you can access data locally, so the part of the data set very fast at the millisecond level, close to the GPU or the GPUs that you have in that location. So with this distributed storage infrastructure, you have both the ability to grow your data storage depending on your business needs and depending on technical needs or whatever. At the same time, you can tune where data is accessed and the performance you need for it. So in the end, you have a very flexible infrastructure. Maybe we won't serve OpenAI storage needs. That's probably for sure. But the 80%, 90% of the enterprises in this world will think this way. So they will need GPUs not very often. They need GPUs only for maybe subset of the data, and we can give them this while keeping control of the data. So they are not sharing the data with an hyperscaler. They are keeping the data in their perimeter. They are just giving the access point for the time needed to the service provider.
So that means businesses who are using Cubbit or equivalent technologies can give their customers the assurance that they're not selling their data to big AI.
Yes, because also we are very strict on encryption, and each single tenant can use a different encryption. That means that if you are a service provider, you are using our technology, you are giving the customer the encryption keys. So you as a service provider can't see anything on the system. This is very important because, it's true that every storage system, object storage system is encrypted, but I mean, you want, again, you can move the gateway in your premises. So you as an end user, you can encrypt data exiting your company at the very moment you are uploading it in the gateway. So that means that when data is spread across the geographic network, is already encrypted, it's travel encrypted, rest encrypted with your own keys, so nobody else can read it.
You've been in this industry a long time, Enrico. What's your mission at Cubbit? What's your mission here? What do you want to deliver?
Well, I mean, it's a let's say that this is a complicated question because I really love the technology. Okay, the technology aspect. What I'm doing today in Cubbit is listening a lot. So I'm listening to our developers. I'm listening to our customers, to our partners, and I'm trying to figure out what's the next step. And I always work this way. So when I was an analyst in the past, my primary job was listening. And I'm doing the same just for one company, for our company. And so I want to be a step ahead of all the others, just to give more value to our customers. When they buy Cubbit, they have to know that there is another feature, another thing that is going to happen soon, and they will get advantage of it. And that's probably it. I mean, at the moment, so we are looking at a great technology. I joined the company because I love the team, I love the technology, I love everything of Cubbit, but the idea at that time was that, well, we are doing something different. We are the paradigm behind distributed storage is totally different. Okay, and we can enable. We have some partners that are now competing with the big names in this industry, making better prices to their customers, and with a more secure environment, and they are doing it without being huge, without doing huge investments. So we have customers that can be totally sovereign, starting at a few hundred terabytes. So their own infrastructure, their own environment, hosted by a service provider, no matter what, maybe multiple service providers, and you can build this system that is totally sovereign, because you have full control where the data is, how it is encrypted, and who can have access to it. I mean, if you are giving your data to hyperscalers, it's good. I mean, they work. I mean, and they tell you that they are sovereign or whatever, but how can they be sovereign? They are owned by an American company, and there is the Cloud Act, the Privacy Act.
Can I tell you, Enrico, this is a really difficult question I'm going to put to you here. So, I was speaking to a CIO yesterday morning, and their point to me was, and this is somebody in a large enterprise, greater than 40,000 employees, multiple geographies. If somebody in a business unit asks them for a specific technology, the first question they ask is, does AWS do it? We're already engaged with AWS. We're getting our serverless compute. We've got our encryption. We've got our dev tools. All of this gamut of technology. Why should a infrastructure leader consider that a startup infrastructure player has something fundamentally better, cheaper, more efficient, innovative than an AWS? I mean, that's a hard question, because AWS is it's an amazing company with amazing people, amazing products that are so big and have that power and weight of scale. So why would they consider anything other? Because, by the way, I am seeing companies start to repatriate from the cloud. So like,
you see,
not to lead the answer.
So there are a couple of things. One is,
how do you find
AWS
your
is
niche?
the new mainframe. Okay, look at what happened with mainframes. So everybody hates them because not because they don't work or they are not beautiful machines, whatever. It's just because they lock in. Okay, so banks started in the 60s and in the 70s with mainframes, still paying to IBM huge bills every year. Okay, with the machines that are not faster, that are not better, that are not anything. Just they wrote coding COBOL. They are using kicks and stuff. They can't get out. They can get out, and they will never get out. I mean, you don't have options. That's it. If you don't have options, then you are, in a problem. So if you are completely locked in AWS, but the same goes for Google, Microsoft, whatever. I mean,
indeed, OpenAI as well for the big AI tools.
So if you are completely locked in today, what will happen in 20 years from now? So AWS at some point will raise the prices, will make things more difficult for you, but we are still locked in. And that's a big problem for your business, for your competitivity, for innovation, for everything. Potentially not, but potentially yes. I mean, depending on things that we are. So, and the other thing is that we gave up on skills. So the cloud is good, and we gave up on infrastructure skill and managed service on some database planning or on a lot of things. And so skills means people. So you gave up on skills and people, and you are replacing them with FinOps, because you didn't have people tuning, optimizing, thinking about when you have to deal, let's think about 20 years ago. You were buying a server, okay? You wanted to be sure that the server was going to do the job in the right way. Now, you buy a server, it doesn't work, well, put it a bigger one. Or, the database is not perfectly tuned, why should I tune the database? We can have more RAM or more everything. Cost rises, the developer is not doing his job. You don't even, you lose control. I mean, I always talk about sovereignty, but in general, independence is more power than sovereignty at some point. You lose your independence. So you are taking for granted that everything underneath your application is managed by somebody. And so you have these FinOps tools now coming in, and you say, okay, solve my problem. Okay, so tune better the application, the spending, etc., etc. But you're not solving the problem. You lost, the knowledge to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm always say is that, okay, there are alternatives. You can build your own stack. You're using your own databases. You're using your, your middle tier stuff, your whatever you're using in your organization. Why do you have to give up on all of it? Because if you have your own stack, you have a lot of leverage. You can move from one cloud to the other in minutes. You say, okay, I use Kubernetes, I use these databases, I use these other technologies, and on top of it, there is my application. And there are several tools that allow you to build your own stack and manage it. And then you can move it across multiple locations. For example, instead of doing everything with AWS, you can choose, just to mention one, Red Hat, no? So you can use OpenShift. OpenShift is the same no matter where you're using it. And so you can move your workloads. You can't move your data, but that's where we come in. So you need to find in your stack something that is agnostic to the platform. So with Cubbit, for example, you can have the gateway or part of the infrastructure in each single cloud. So you create a multi-cloud environment where data is accessible from everywhere, and you can move the application accordingly. So you don't have the lock-in.
Which is the future, because what you've just described is the data architecture for the AI and machine era. Because the data center really doesn't exist anymore once we're working on decentralized cognitive applications and robots and machines. So there's no doubt in my mind that the architecture is the architecture for the AI era.
Yeah.
But I guess, do organizations realize the scale of the shift that's coming? How are they supported to kind of awaken to realize what's happening, and it's happening so quickly?
So I was with a company, just to give you this example, a few days ago. Okay, they are spending huge boatloads of money, boatloads amounts of money on BigQuery from Google. And you know that it's impossible to come out of there. So as soon as you put all your data in that repository, there is no way you can, there is no exit strategy. So you're putting all your data there. Why? Why? So is it the perfect product today? Maybe yes. Okay. But what happens if you need, to make a big change? And if you want your data back, and if you want to do something different, that's practically impossible. So you're locked in, and you're forced to spend the money they tell you to spend, and so on. So again, the mind frame of this year is the cloud. So you're giving up on your knowledge, you're giving up on everything just because it's easier today, but it will come back to you with the interest and everything, and that will make you less competitive long time.
Enrico, you've been a source of inspiration for me myself in my career. I enjoyed, I've built startups, sold them, extensive work within the data protection storage industry. I've followed your content for the last 15 years. So the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you today is an honor. You've been a trusted expert for
Thank you.
2 decades for companies who are looking to optimize their storage, their data. You've ridden the mainframe wave. You've seen the cloud wave. You're here now in one of the most notable cities in Europe for its academic depth, and you're teamed with these 2 high-energy, intelligent founders, and you're building something that's really important, I think. But it will enable AI on a level that we haven't seen before. It will enable decentralized factories, robots. It's going to do amazing things. The work at Leonardo is allowing data to be sent and received from space. It's amazing. It's truly enabling the machine and AI era. Do you believe AI is going to take humanity to a utopia or dystopia?
I think it's too early to tell, and I'm a sci-fi fan. I read a lot of sci-fi books, and sometimes you read these books and you have these benevolent AIs helping the hero of the book, and they say, okay, this is really good. But sometimes you have Matrix like movies and novels, and I mean, I don't know. Actually, it's too early to tell. If we will be able to be more ethical in the way we use AI, I mean, it will be really beneficial. But if AI will remain in the hands of corporations that they only they are driven by, and rightly so. I mean, they are driven by their investors. They have to produce money for their investors. Then it will be tough. That's it. I hope that Europe, being less on the corporate side or political side anyway, but more driven by ethical and human ideas. I think that for AI, Europe could be a utopian place to be. I'm not so sure for the US.